Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Faster Masters Rowing Radio, where having a rowing coach only makes you better. Following a program gives you a true pathway to becoming a confident sculler who's respected by your peers. You can become the athlete you want to row with. I'm Rebecca Caro, and I'm joined by Marlene Royle and special guest Claudia Pace.
Hello, Faster Masters.
How's your week been, Marlene?
Great. It flew by. I can't believe it's already time for another Faster Masters Rowing Radio podcast. But really good week.
Hang on just a moment. Don't launch into the detail quite yet, because we've got a few other things we have to cover off before we get on to what you really did in the week.
Okay, got it.
I do want to welcome all of our live watchers. So people who are watching us on the live stream, if you want to take part, contribute, you can use the comments box below the live stream and tell us who you are and where you're listening or watching from, because we'd love to have you on board. We've got a little segment later on where we definitely need your engagement. So we're looking forward to that. Now, sorry, I've done this in all the wrong order. Hold your horses. Sponsors. This week we have as our sponsor again, ScullingGear.com, founded by Christine Coughlin, when she realized there wasn't a single store where she could get all of the things she needed for her single scull after she'd bought a new boat. Her best three sellers are rowing gloves, the Take a Look mirror, and the Squoosh seat cushion. Mention Rowing Chat when you contact Sculling Gear. And our second sponsor is the Rowing Directory. This is on rowing.chat, and you just follow the link to the word directory in the menu. I have updated listings this week for the Rower Academy, which is for coaching high school students who want to row in college. The Coffee Corporation, who do the ergs swingulator. The San Diego Crew Classic Race. Latanzo Rowing Parts, who supply, obviously, repair parts for boats. Volare Sports, which is rowing clothing. The Ready Set Row Camps, which is also a youth camp organization. Hudson Boats worldwide listing has been updated. And obviously they have local agents in different parts of the world as well. And The Wave magazine, which is a new rowing publication for the sport of coastal and offshore rowing. So we welcome all of them to rowing.chat and then follow the link to the word directory. And you might be surprised to see what you find there. Now, let's welcome some of our live watchers. So we have a big hello, as ever, from Whitby, where she says it snowed. West Coast snow. And Charles Adams says he's putting forward all the right notes. Look, he has an English Marmite jar.
That looks good.
Have you ever tasted Marmite, Marlene?
No.
Okay, so
but I love Eccles.
Eccles cakes.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing like Marmite. So Marmite is a byproduct of the brewing industry, not making lager, but making traditional real ales. And it now has a whole concept named after it, the Marmite effect, because you either love it or you hate it. There's like no kind of, I can take a bit. And English Marmite, it's very strong. So you put your buttered toast, real butter, and then a very small skim of Marmite on top. And then I came to New Zealand. And in New Zealand, they have a different formula for Marmite where you can actually spread it thicker. It's not so strong. But they trademarked the name. So when you go into a store, you can buy British Marmite, but they had to put different labels on. And instead of, it looks exactly like the one Charlie's got there. But instead of where it says Charlie, where normally it would say Marmite, in New Zealand, if you buy it, it says My Mate, because there's a well-known advert that says My Mate Marmite. Hello from Jeanette. And Chris says there's tiny bits of snow here in Fort Collins. Nice to see you, Chris, with us. Lisa McMath, welcome from cold Colorado. And Mike Wagner is in Oyster Bay, New York. Where's Oyster Bay, New York? Upstate New York?
No, it's where Claudia is.
It's where Claudia is.
Long Island.
That's where I am. It's on the north shore of Long Island. It's on the part of Long Island Sound across from Connecticut. And we have a nice little enclosed bay. It's where Theodore Roosevelt was from, one of our presidents. And we have a presidential home there, National Park Service site. And it's a sweet little town.
Fabulous. You're doing it a great service as tourism.
Well, you know, Teddy Roosevelt did actually row as well at Harvard. So we're carrying on the tradition.
Yes.
Right. Cece says she used to live at Centerport. Now, Marlene, this past week, so this is a segment that Marlene and I have added into the podcast in order to showcase some of the things that we are working on to advocate for masters rowing around the world. So what was your week comprising?
My week was comprised of getting ready for virtual races, not me, but athletes that I work with. I did get some very nice news from faster master Mitzi Nicoletti, who competed in the Denver indoor rowing sprints and won the 500-meter event. So that was very exciting. And she also mentioned Chris Ringdale also was competing in the Denver indoor rowing sprints and did very well. So that was great news for us to hear on the Faster Masters side of things. On the Royal Row side of things, with some of the athletes that I work with on an individual level, I had two athletes who qualified for the FISA World Indoor Rowing Sprints. And in North America, only two people qualify from all of North America. Only two people qualify in each event. So Sheila Finley from Edmonton qualified in the women's over 60 event. She rowed a time of 7:45, so she was cooking right along there. So she's going to be in the final of the World Indoor Sprints on February 24th. And also Tasana Landi, who was in the lightweight women 55 event, also has qualified for the World Indoor Sprint. So she will be one of the finalists racing on the 24th. And they have to race according to Central European time, but there will be people from all continents who have been invited for the final there. So that's been kind of fun to monitor. And of course, some people are getting ready for Crash Bees along with Faster Masters people. That's going to be March 7th. And I got a really nice message from Steve, one of my long-term athletes who I've worked with, and he's a great follower of Royal Row and Faster Masters Radio. And he sent this message to Will and I, which I thought was really nice. And we talked about this a little bit last week. Just listen to your Science of Rowing pod as I'm getting ready for my cold, long, slow distance trail run. I think one reason you are both such great coaches for masters and ancient athletes is that you don't just say, do it this way, but you're open to conversations about technique and training. Not all, but most masters rowers I know are smart, analytical, and questioning. They need to bring their brains, not just their bodies, into the coaching relationship. I spend lots of time around college rowers, and I'm always surprised that they are so comfortable not knowing so many things about our sport. They express little interest in learning the reasons behind technique or training or rigging or history. Most seem satisfied just doing what their coaches tell them to do. It's way different for most masters that I know. So I thought that was a really nice comment. And, when we coaches, we work a lot, when we get a nice comment or feedback, it really makes my day. So that was nice message to get.
That's certainly true. And also really interesting that one of the things that we haven't spoken about for a while, but maybe we'll put it onto the podcast in the next couple of weeks, is how to become a good student of the sport. And I was reminded in a separate conversation this week that if you want to understand something, ask why 3 times. So why is my gate height this high? And then get the first answer and then ask why again, and you'll get a more detailed answer, and then you get to begin to fully understand it with your third ask. So there we go. Ask why 3 times. Now, my week was also busy because this weekend we're going to be running our very first scrimmage regatta. Now, Marlene and I have mentioned scrimmages quite often, and we have 4 clubs coming. As it happens, each of our clubs, their boat trailers have gone away for our national championships for youth rowers. So we are providing all the boats at our club. And the nice thing about that is that people just have to drive over there. They don't have to bring anything. Actually, it's not quite true. They have to bring PFDs, but just bring yourself and come ready for racing. And so I'm going to write up how we did it. What's the checklist for organizers if you're thinking of doing something like this? And we'll make this into a resource which can then be made available for other clubs should you be thinking of doing something similar. And I'll let you know what happens. I spent a lot of time last night with this really long list of unfamiliar people trying to put them into crews. And then, of course, I circulate the draft crews and they're like, oh, but so-and-so rows on this side or this side. And I'm like, well, you didn't tell me, even though I asked you to say who you're bringing and what side they row on. Otherwise, I would have put them in a better seat. Someone wrote back and said, he's 6'8". And I'm like, all right, okay. I won't put him in that seat.
I know. Communication is a beautiful thing.
Well, I didn't know the guy. So anyway, I look forward to meeting you, Clive, if you're listening now. And then I should also say that for the erg results that we've had, we've got a couple of people who also have some results to share. If you want to be name checked in any of your race results and you're part of the broader community of Faster Masters Rowing Radio, please just tell us what you've been up to, and yeah, we'll name check you on the show. And for those people who are planning another erg race in the future coming up soon, for example, the Crash Bees, we have a little segment later on in the show today called Erg Racing Your Mental Approach. So I commend that to you. Stick around and you'll get a bit more from that. Now, let me show you my beautiful photo. So this is from Bari in Italy and was uploaded to the Facebook group. Isn't that gorgeous? A double rowing out of the harbour. And I think, Marlene, do you say you've been there?
Oh, yes, I have. Yes.
That's superb, isn't it?
Yes. I love the Mediterranean. Don't we all?
Don't we all? Watching live, we have Sarah joining us from Portland. Hi. And we have some more race results. Cece has said she also did Denver. She won her 500 meters race as the first out of 2, but she was the only entry in her 2K event. Well, hey, 2 wins. And she is in the World Rowing Final as well, the FISA event that Marlene mentioned. She's in the lightweight women masters 55 to 59. And so she's going to be racing to Sander. So do they know each other?
Yes. Probably not. I think Tassana lives on the East Coast and Cece lives on the West Coast. But the Canadian Indoors was run virtually. So
yeah.
But that was the qualifier for all of North America for the World Indoor. FISA World Indoors. Yeah. So great, Cece. You didn't tell us that. You waited until today.
And someone who, I don't know their name, they said they did 7:04 last weekend. Hooray, whoever you are. Sounds like a great score.
Anything under 8 is great.
I'm with you there. Now, for people who've been following the Facebook Masters Rowing International Facebook group, there was a discussion which I'm going to open to the floor today. Given the choice, when you're starting to learn to row, should you do sweep or sculling first? Marlene.
Sculling.
Just simple, no reason why. Remember, you got to ask why 3 times.
Well, because you'll learn more quicker, I think. I think it'll develop your coordination and your balance faster. But if you don't like doing things by yourself, you might not like it. But I think, well, I'm assuming single, you might like a quad. But anyway, I would say scull. Yes. I think you can go from sculling to sweep easier than you can go from sweep to sculling.
When you first learned to row, did you do sweep first?
Yes. There was almost no sculling at my club at that time because our club had just burned down and we had very, very little equipment. And when I started rowing, there were 2 of us and we rowed in 2 girls and we rowed in the bow pair of a heavyweight men's 8. So that was back in 1977. That was a long time ago, guys. West Side Rowing Club, the big fire was just before Canadian Henley. And then I started rowing right after the fire. So yeah, we all just sweep rowing. I didn't start sculling until I was in my 3rd year of university.
I was the same. I did sweep first, and I would definitely advocate for sculling first. And I teach masters sculling first, partly because it is more symmetrical. And it means that we can mix up men and women and taller and shorter people into the same boat. And that makes a huge difference for just general flexibility of being able to get people out on the water. For me personally, that's massive. And we've got some people online who are giving us their views. So I'll bring you in due course. So in the discussion, one of the things that was so interesting was the number of organizations who felt that sweep was good because you could get 8 people learning together. And then, of course, the obvious sort of next observation was always, yeah, but rowing with 8 people and they're all novices and it's
not good for your back, right? So this spells pain. No, I'm kidding.
That's right. Claudia, tell us, did you sweep or scull first? What was your experience?
My first introduction was sweep. It was in 1980. It was Oki's program at BU. The first year he did that was before Marlene was there. That was my first introduction. I did that. And but I quickly, when I graduated from college, I went over to Riverside and there was just sculling there. And it was kind of like, learn as you go along and make it up as you go along. I had 2 really nice people who would row with me in the mornings. And at the time, I had no appreciation for who they were, but they were quite amazing rowers. And then I went up to Craftsbury and I essentially learned how to scull there. And but then the opportunities being what they were, I went back to rowing in sweep boats, and then I rowed in sculling boats. Wherever I could row, that's where I rowed. And now at Sagamore, we're mostly sculling. Jason, who's just posting a comment now, he's one of our members at Sagamore. But we occasionally try to get people into bigger boats because it's fun. Because those of us who have big boat experience, it's fun. But I do enjoy the single, especially more after last summer, the year of the single. It was a real joy to really be able to enjoy it without having any pressure of competition or anything. It was nice to just enjoy it for a change. So, but yeah, I think wherever people can have an opportunity to row, that's where they should go. But if they do have a choice, obviously sculling is better developmentally, for the body and for balance. And if you're a better sculler, you're more effective in a larger boat anyway. But sometimes you don't have a choice.
Marlene, do you want to read out Jason's?
Sure. So what does Jason? Jason says, I began as a sweep rower in college, and I think sculling is much better to start with for better form and balance, to understand the fundamentals and how a boat moves more efficiently. And a single is like your private coach. So from that point of view, it's definitely productive. When Claudia started rowing back in 1980 in Boston, there were no learn to row programs except our program at Boston University, which was a summer program. But there were also no recreational boats back then. You learned how to row in a racing single. That was it. There, or a weary, like a big, heavy, lap streak type of weary. But,
whatever they let you use at Riverside.
yeah, I mean, there just wasn't the choice that people have now. Everything from coastal to open water boats to singles with lots of different types of shapes and bottoms for stability. That just in those days it was like, oh, here, you get a racing single. That's it. Off you go. So.
Cece says, I learned sweep in college in 1985, and then 32 years later, I bought a single and learned to scull in 2017. And an anonymous user says, I did sculling first because we didn't have a coxswain. Well,
that'll do it. Definitely.
Definitely do it for you.
And also with a quad, you can row a quad with 3. That's another nice thing of sculling. If you don't have 4 people, rowing a 4 with 3 is funky, but it's theoretically possible, but it's not easy. So
read it out, Marlene.
Oh, so Jeanette learned how to scull back in high school. And I think, I think in Canada, definitely there's more emphasis on teaching juniors how to scull than there was in the United States, at least, back in the day, 20, 25 years ago. She said most high school rowing back then was sweep, but a master sculler at the club took time to teach me how to scull in his older boat, and I'm forever grateful to him. Yes, because look at how many years later and you're still sculling.
That's right. And Rich Weaver says, I personally haven't learned how to sweep. I learned to scull 3 years ago, and it was the most terrifying and somewhat daunting experience. I had to learn how to be more balanced in the boat. That was what we were talking about, body balance. And I am so thankful that I had the support from a sculler. Sounds like your experience is very like Jeanette's. I am so thankful I didn't give up and give in to fear. My life has been so enriched from sculling. Well, what a wonderful thing to say, Rich. And high fives to you.
Yes, absolutely. You're not a real sculler until you fall in anyway. At least once.
At least once, that's right. Now, our special guest today from Sagamore Masters Rowing Club is Claudia Pace. Claudia, welcome to Faster Masters.
Thank you. It's actually Sagamore Rowing Association, and we have juniors as well as masters, although we suspended our junior programming because of COVID, and we've been just pretty strong. We have a pretty strong core group of masters who we've been working with for the past almost year now.
Tell us a little bit about the composition of the group and where you're located and yeah.
So the composition of our group with Faster Masters, we're using the Faster Masters program. We've had 22 people. That represents about almost a third of our adult membership. As I said before, our club is mostly sculling based club. So the Faster Masters program is really it's beautifully designed and beautifully suited to us because we have a lot of people who like to work on their own, like to work on their own things. But it's also been a wonderful opportunity for us to work together via Zoom. We are a pretty mixed group. The interest level of everybody is not all the same. It's not a very homogeneous group. We have some people who are doing one program and some people who are doing another program working towards different goals. Almost everybody who signed up for the program is engaged in doing something, although we have a few people who are injured or have had procedures, surgeries, and things like that. So they're on the recovery list right now. But pretty much everybody is engaged, although there are some people who are more engaged on a different level than other people.
I think that's a life thing, isn't it? The longer you live, the more you realize that every year is not the same as what went before.
Mm-hmm. And everybody has a different reason for being in it. Some people, I think, are involved just because they want the social interaction, and some people are really training for crash bees, or seriously training for crash bees, or training kind of for crash bees, or some people are looking to peak later in the season and they're not really focusing on crash bees. And some people are just doing it because it gives them focus, and it gives them a plan, so that they don't have to really think. They can just like go and look up the plan and just do it, and not worry about like what they're actually, if they're not training for a specific race yet. They're just trying to keep fit. So it's a good group from our perspective. It's been really effective, very successful, because we don't have the ability to actually be together and erg together as we have done for the past 3 years at our indoor training facility. We've let that go because of COVID. We were fortunate enough to have ergs that we could send home with people. We sold some of our equipment to members, so we have a pretty good group of our membership who have ergs at home. And this allows us to be together while we're apart. And it's, in some ways, it's also been better than the structure that we had before, where we met once a week formally with a coach, and then we had 2 or 3 other days where the gym was available to us and we could work out together. But we didn't have a focus for those other 3 days. And so the feedback from us doing the Faster Master program this winter is that everybody has found that their performance has improved significantly. And I think part of that is because the program design is so good. And part of that is because it's geared towards the 3 key workouts per week. And then we all get together on Sunday mornings as well. And so you've got 4 workouts a week that people are actually doing. And then whatever they're doing the other 3 days, whether they're going cross-country skiing or running or Peloton or whatever, yoga or Pilates or whatever other people are doing, or the strength training or whatever they're doing, people have been more, I think, more applied. It's also, someone pointed out that she wasn't sure if it would work as well if it were not for the fact that we were in the pandemic with doing everything virtually. But because we are doing everything virtually, it's worked particularly well. And it's worked so well that we are going to keep the program as a membership benefit for members throughout the year, so that when we transition back to the water, we can all take it with us onto the water, whether we're rowing still in singles or whether we're allowed to row in doubles or quads or whatever we're allowed to be in. We can work in our pods on the same thing. So I'm very excited about being able to do it, carry it forward for the rest of the year. But it's been a really good experience.
So just to roll the clock back a little bit, Claudia approached us because originally you said we have a winter training challenge, which was that your gym that you used to be able to use for your ergs was closed and not accessible because of COVID. And although she's already explained the answer, it was really interesting in having the discussions about whether or not what we were offering could be made to work for your diverse group. Marlene and I were confident because we already knew that across the individual members already in our program, who obviously aren't personally known to you, that we have people with very divergent goals and aspirations or, desires. And that what's so nice is that as a squad, a training group, you've managed to embed that flexibility that already existed around a common program.
Well, what's also nice is that everybody comes with a different skill level, and the way that the program is designed, it really suits a very divergent breadth of skills in terms of how fast people can go or want to go, and it's beautiful in that respect as well.
I'm delighted to hear that from you, because until you've actually tried it in practice, I can promise the world that you shouldn't believe me until you've tried it. Now, when we have a monthly coaching call with your group, and we obviously Zoom it and record it, and the last one we had people dialing in from their cars, people who were at home, people were all over the place. What benefit does the group find? What feedback do you get from those coaching calls?
Well, the way we designed it is we've only been with Faster Master since November, so we've had two full coaching check-ins with Marlene, and the first one was just with our team leaders. We have a few key people that we have team leaders. And then and they're the ones who sort of run the group Zoom practices. And that was for our first meeting. The last meeting that we had, we opened it up to anybody who wanted to join us. Unfortunately, it was at a time of day, perhaps, that not too many people could join in person. So we had a few people who are not team leaders join us on that call, but we do record the calls so that everybody can watch the feedback and the commentary. And I have heard from people who've watched it that it is very helpful. The thing that got the most comments and people find the most humorous is the amount of protein that we're all supposed to be eating every day. That's hilarious. So I'm not really sure if that's a real indication of the level of commitment everybody has. But everybody's very, very concerned about their protein levels now.
More whey protein, right?
Yeah, and what kind?
Yes, that's it. Make sure it's grass-fed. Make sure it's from grass-fed cows, right?
But everybody is taking it, from the feedback that I get, everybody is taking it very, taking it as seriously and getting what they want out of the program. So you get out of, with any program, you get out of it what you put into it. So it seems to me that everybody is happy with it.
I have a question about how you approached the management, the committee in your rowing association with this proposal, because clearly somebody had the idea that it might be a good idea, but obviously you had to get commitment, Claudia. What process did you go through to persuade them, to spend quite a lot of money?
Okay, so it wasn't from our perspective, it wasn't really as challenging, because we have actually had a core group of people that worked together at our indoor training facility with a coach for the last 3 years. So from my perspective as someone who's on the board and looking for a way to continue that, not only to keep our members engaged, especially our newer members. We had a pretty good increase of members over this past summer of experienced scullers, people who had actually had some rowing experience before. So in order to keep them interested throughout the winter, it was really important to be able to offer something to keep people going over the winter, and we brought it to the board, and the board agreed that we could do this. We priced it out and figured out that we would need a certain amount of people, and we could charge a certain amount per person to make the program go. Mm-hmm. And we priced it out at a rate that was accessible to everybody. And mm-hmm. We had a pretty good enrollment. As I said, we have 22 people, which represents probably about a third of our membership, and it's everybody who was active over the summer. So it's the people who weren't really very active over the summer tended not to join, and hopefully they'll come back in the spring, and hopefully they will enjoy the the fact that we're going to be able to offer it as a benefit, and they can apply the Faster Masters to the water when we get back to the water. But bringing it to the board and getting the board to acquiesce that we could do this was the step that we had to take as a formality, but it wasn't really that difficult. I will say that one of the reasons why we approached Faster Masters was because I've been watching what you're doing on Facebook and following Masters Rowing International and knowing Marlene and we have another member at our club who's been working with Marlene with Royle Row, and watching how diligent she was and how careful she was and how she started as a beginner rower and is very comfortable in her boat. She's just very self-sufficient, very comfortable, and realizing that is something that we can certainly provide that to our members through this program. We can add comfort, we can add skill development without having to worry about the exorbitant costs of having an in-person coach, because that just wasn't feasible this year.
If you were talking today to someone in a different club, but with a similar situation, what advice would you give them?
As far as the program?
Yeah.
Well, I guess the first thing is to figure out what level you can afford to do and how you can afford to do it. If you have a club that is a small club, we're not a big club. If you've got a club that's a small club and you've got people of all different levels and you want to be able to find something to offer them that will suit everybody, figure out what you need to do to be able to afford it. At the time, we couldn't afford to just pick it up and offer it to our members. We actually had to charge something. Figure out your price point, and you have to figure out how many people you need to make it viable. And then it's basically what we did is we had a conversation. I talked to a couple of key people in the club, and we had a conversation with Marlene, and she walked us through what the club could actually offer to us. And then we were able to have conversations with our members individually to explain the benefits of the program and sort of enroll them in that possibility of them being a part of the, and participating in the program through the winter. And we decided to do it as a trial. We initially thought we'll do it for the winter and to replace what we had in the last couple of years. And it's just been very, very well received. So my biggest advice is just figure out to talk to you guys, and figure out a way to make it work, and then do it.
Then just do it. So thank you for that.
It's really a no-brainer. From my perspective, it's a no-brainer. If you don't have a coach and you can't afford to hire a coach, or you don't have the critical mass to make it work, because you've got people all over the place, and one coach can't coach someone who's novice and someone who's not quite novice anymore. And we're not going to get everybody into an 8 and make everybody suffer, kind of thing. It's a really good alternative to having a live person there. It works really well. I think, as I said before, one of the reasons why it works really well for us is because we are essentially a sculling club, and people tend to be self-driven. My biggest point when I was describing to our members what the program was going to be like was explaining to them it is essentially a self-driven program, but we will have support for you. And that would be, we had organized group Zooms. So we have Tuesday and Thursday morning, Tuesday and Thursday evening, Saturday, Sunday morning. Those are our typical sessions. And then we have this thing called Sports U, which is like our communication tool, and all the workouts get posted on that. I also do some email support because not everybody reads the Sports U and not everybody reads their email. So sometimes you have to do both, make sure everybody reads everything, which they still don't do, but that's, that's just the way it is. And then texting people to find out how they're doing. They're doing regular check-ins with people. So that's kind of like how we're making it work. I'm not sure that would work like in a bigger place, but like 22 people isn't that hard to manage.
That's so good to hear. And for anybody who's listening, if you might want to consider the Faster Masters, it's called the Club/Coach program. It has two versions. One is if you're the coach and you want to take the program and use it for your group. Obviously, it gives you the training program, which you can then adapt if you want to, or just simply use wholesale. And we will coach the coach if you have a coach. Or, as Claudia's described, we work directly with the group themselves. And we'd be happy to do a Zoom call with your board or your club committee if they are considering Faster Masters as an option, and be there to answer your questions.
I'd like to add also one of the things that really sold us when we were in our exploratory phase was that Marlene showed us all of the additional content that was available. Like there are monthly videos, there's lifestyle advice, there's bonus things every month. There's so much content. There's there are whole modules on strength training. There's so much content every month that there's no way that you're not going to get what you're looking for. You just have to, we have more members and participants who don't have time to go through all the information than we have people we don't have anybody who's saying, oh, there just isn't enough here for me. Nobody said that. It's just, I've asked people, have you looked at this? Have you looked at that? And most of the time it's like, well, I've looked at some of the videos. I don't really do this. I don't have time to do this. But that's the beauty of the program is there's so much there that you can get out of it whatever you want to get out of it.
Thank you so much. Marlene, do you have anything to add?
Well, thank you, Claudia, for all of the feedback. And, I do think one of the important aspects of the design of the program is how we write the workouts so that people of different abilities can do them together. And that's that all of the workouts are written by time for the most part. Sometimes, obviously, if there's 1,000 meters racing coming up, you have to do a 1,000-meter trial or something like that. But as far as the majority of the workouts, they're written by time. So everybody starts together, everybody finishes together, and what their speed is, they've determined their speeds by doing the 20-minute test, and they each have their individual paces, so they can work at their own pace, and they start and stop together so the group can do something together. And when you get back on the water, there's the variant of, all right, well, now these workouts, instead of your erg paces, now it's the stroke rates that you focus on the water. So I do think that that's a really important part of it for individuals, but especially if you've got a training partner, you train in a double with someone or your group, it's an important thing to keep people together. Because if you did things by distance, everybody would be finishing at different times and it would be mass chaos. So what I
really like is that this month you guys have the force curve bonus again. And one of the things Marlene was saying was that if you are in a group boat, you can like match up your force curves. And that was something that we've been talking about in like our small groups, our little morning groups. I do the morning, someone else does the evenings. But that's one way that like you can really see that it translates no matter what kind of boat you're in. Like there's application, and nobody has ever said, oh gosh, this is just too hard, I can't do this. Everybody says it's challenging, but everything is doable. And then there's a great sense of accomplishment when you're finished. And yeah, I will admit there are days when it's just sort of like, I don't want to do this. And then you do it, and it's like, I don't think I'm going to make it through this. And then you get through it, and it's just like, I'm so glad I did that. And it really wasn't so bad after all. But no one's ever said, oh, this is just awful, I can't do this. No one said that. At least they've not told me that. Maybe they're saying that in their own, but nobody's saying that. Everybody is really enjoying it, is the feedback I'm getting.
That's called the magic stardust.
Pixie dust.
The pixie dust.
Yeah, it works.
One of our live watchers says, wow, Claudia, thank you. So there you go. I don't know who that is, but thank you for thanking Claudia.
Thank you.
Now, we're going to wrap up with a little segment about your mental approach to doing an erg, particularly if you are training for erg racing. And I have a particular bugbear, and I will share it now. When you're going into a planned erg event, even if it's in the club, I listen to what people are saying while they're warming up and stretching, and doing some practice starts or whatever, and then getting ready to do the piece. And so frequently, I hear people lining up their excuses. And they'll say things like, oh, I didn't sleep so well last night. I think I have a bit of a fever coming, or a cold, or a bit of a virus, or I've got a sore muscle. And it just really annoys me, because I feel like saying, are you well enough to train, or are you sick and injured? Either one or the other. Don't go into it kind of being ready to give yourself an excuse to walk away. Either you're doing it or you're not. And vocalizing it has a distinct effect on your brain. It allows you to grasp onto this, I don't know,
excuse.
Yeah. So when you're doing and approaching a session, prepare yourself to do it, commit to doing, I am going to do this, and put aside and do not vocalize excuses. What's your tip, Marlene, for mental approaching ergs?
Well, I totally agree with that, because that's called self-sabotage. It doesn't make your life easier. If big tip is that you must be very well rested, ideally, okay? Go into this as rested as you can. So, don't say, oh yeah, I know I stayed up too late last night. Not good. Oh, I forgot to eat breakfast. Okay, not good. You must be well rested if you are going to tolerate pain. And if you're going to row an all-out piece that's really going to be emptying the bucket, that's really going to be the best you can do on the day, which means all of it until the last stroke is done, you've got to be well rested so that you're able to deal with the mental side of the discomfort, because it is going to be there. And it doesn't matter how, the more you train does not mean that will go away. Okay, you've just got to learn how to be prepared for it. Say, hey, this is part of the game, and you have to have a strategy for getting through that. And whether that strategy, like I used to count by threes, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. When it got really bad, I would go by threes. Because remember, as it gets really painful, your brain isn't going to work really well, so you can't do anything too complicated as you get into the piece. It's your game plan's got to get simpler and simpler. And if it means going by ones, go by ones. But prepare for that, and in your training, we do some stuff that, is a little nasty from time to time, but there's a purpose to that, right? Like there's workouts that help you buffer lactic acid, right? So they're high intensity with long rest. Then there's workouts that help you tolerate. It might be the same workout, but you have much shorter rest. So there's two different things going on in those types of workouts. But rest is very, very important to mental toughness. And you're not going to be mentally tough if you're not rested. So if you're, don't go shopping for 8 hours the day before your trial. Like, stay home and rest. Don't talk to anybody. Go away from people. Rest. Go, like at the head of the trials, I tell people, go in your hotel room and you stay there until your race is over. Then go talk to anybody you want. But you have to rest because you need the focus. Without the focus, you can't deal with the discomfort. And remember, as soon as you stop, you're going to forget that you were uncomfortable.
And
goes away fast.
Says, amen to that, Rebecca. And Cece says, do or do not, there is no try. Oh, she's a hard one.
Yeah, and whatever you do, finish it. I mean, I don't care. Sometimes people blow up. If you've got to crawl to the end, just finish it. Don't quit. The worst thing is to quit. If it's a health emergency, that's different. But I mean, if you blow up or the whole thing just goes wrong, just row it out and finish it. That's a must. That's a must. And don't worry about it. There will be another day. Just do the best. Your training is setting you up to learn your pacing. It's setting you up to row a good piece. And, just do everything you can to give yourself the best option.
Absolutely. Now, rolling back to an earlier topic of whether you learned sweep or sculling first. Sarah tells us in 2007 she learned sculling and she took every learn to row that was offered that summer. Wow. I got in any boat that someone would let me in. And then she started working with Marlene in 2008 and bought herself a single scull in 2009. There's a nice progression. And she says she prefers it over sweep, hands down. Well, there you go. It's quite interesting because I definitely thought of myself as a sweep rower mostly, and now I genuinely think I'm better at sculling. So yeah.
But being in a fast 8 is a phenomenal. When you're in a really good 8, that's an incredible experience. I have to admit, I haven't been in an 8 in a really, really long time. But when you row if you have a season when you have a top-notch 8, like, that's awesome.
Yep, it is. Now, I think we're coming to the end of this week's Faster Masters Rowing Radio. Thank you, Claudia, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And to everybody who's listening live, your participation is lovely. We really, really get energized by seeing you watching. Even if you don't comment, we know you're there. We have a little counter thing. So thank you for being with us. This show is part of the Rowing Chat podcast network. You can get a subscription to receive an email notification each week, or you can find us in all of the podcast apps online. So this has been Faster Masters Rowing Radio, where having a rowing coach only makes you better. Following a program gives you a true pathway to becoming a confident sculler who's respected by your peers. Become the athlete you want to row with. And we will see you at the same time next week. Goodbye from me.
Bye.
Bye.